Hello and welcome to Travel Market Life, episode 3. In this session, we're going to be speaking to Neville Isaac, who is the Chief Customer Officer for Beonprice, a revenue management system. Neville has been a general manager. He's also worked within revenue management at NH Hotels and has since gone on to work within Beonprice within revenue management systems, looking at how revenue management systems can actually help improve the delivery of better rates into the marketplace. I've got Neville on the line with us now. Hello, Neville. How are things going over there in Spain?
Morning, Ryan. Well, we're into week 6 of lockdown. So I'd quite like to go and have a beer in the park, but we're getting through okay. Madrid's been the epicenter of coronavirus in Spain. There's something like 60,000 cases just in Madrid, but we see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm feeling good about things slowly getting better.
I mean, you've been busy. You've been all over the webinar circuit over the last few weeks. How has that been to move all your discussions offline to online?
It's been very interesting. There's good things. Every crisis has good things come out of it. One good thing that's come out of it is that there's been a lot of solidarity in the industry, and people are trying to help each other, and people are happy to invite you to their webinars or you to theirs or share information. So this is really good. And the other thing that's very interesting is we've done webinars in the past, and we've done them with partners, and we've invited people, and it's been interesting content, and we've had maybe 100 attendees. I was in a webinar yesterday with 650 people attending. So there's a lot more interest. So this is good. There's some interesting discussions, but I do think that we may be approaching webinar overload because everyone's talking about the same thing, how to get over coronavirus. I've also seen some presentations where people are saying what's going to happen, but nobody knows what's going to happen. And I think we have to be careful. I have no idea which segment's going to come back first, which feeder market's going to come back first, or when. But I do know what things you can do to make sure you're ready. And I think that some of the discussions I've seen, people are just making it up.
I mean, it is an interesting time. I mean, we have all been hit by something so unexpected, and no matter how well we had our plans laid out, many of those plans have had to be scrapped. A lot of people have had to go back to the drawing board, re-identify what it is that they're able to contribute at any given point in the road to recovery. And we've obviously seen some businesses being able to find a way to provide that support right here, right now, by providing beds or providing food in some way, or changing the way they deliver their service from restaurant to takeout to delivery. And one of the particular things is, I guess, this idea of values, right? Of what are your values, and how can you work on those basis in order to develop a business for yourself?
I mean, I fully agree with this. And actually, I think that the industry has shown that it's full of people who do have values. And people are really helping out. I mean, most hotel chains have offered their hotels to be used by the government. In Spain, in every city, the chains are using the hotels as sort of overflow for hospitals. So this is fantastic. I think we need to support the industry, providing them with things that are useful. In our case, for our own clients, we have been very flexible about payments, and we've offered discounts, and we've even offered schemes like, it's kind of like a mortgage holiday that you can pay later, and because we believe that we want to be partners in a real sense, and we don't just want to be someone who you pay the bill to every month, and lots of companies have done this as well. It's not just us. We've seen lots of technology vendors doing that sort of thing. And then we have some resources in terms of training online that we were using for our customers that we've made available to everybody.
Yeah,
And
because you launched the Beonprice Academy, right, to be
yeah,
available to anybody. And how has that gone?
well, actually, amazing. Beyond Price Academy, we had already created it and we were giving it to our customers. And right at the beginning of the crisis, we decided that we would open it up to anyone in the industry, regardless of whether they were working or not working right now. Because sadly, there's a lot of people not working right now. And so we opened it up. You just click on a link and register, and you have access to the content. It's content about revenue management, so it's not about Beonprice. And we currently got 1,200 people signed up.
Wow.
Almost half of whom, about 40% of whom, have completed the course. So we're really happy about this. This is fantastic. There's no ulterior motive. We're not trying to sell to these people. We just think it's useful for everyone to have more knowledge. And you know, sadly, people have more time right now. So this is the perfect moment to improve yourself. So we're really happy about this. And the other day, we got an email from a guy in the Middle East who had been made unemployed. And he said that he was really surprised that he'd been able to sign up when he wasn't able to put a company name or anything. But that's exactly what we want to do. We want to give people this knowledge. And that's just an example of everyone has to think about how they can contribute to the industry, because the industry as a whole needs to survive and to stay relevant. And actually, I think in a webinar yesterday we were talking about this. One thing that the coronavirus has done is it's shown people that we're all dependent on each other, and even in the sense of you can't. If you don't have coronavirus, you still shouldn't go out, because the risk is not just for you; it's for everybody. And I think in the tourist industry, to an extent, we've also realised we all depend on each other. So this is also a good thing in a bad situation.
And I guess, having all these people training up on revenue management, which essentially is quite a new role. It's only really been around for about 20 years and it's been evolving over that time. And you working within pricing, and in particular, the fact to have access to data that looks at sort of future pricing, current pricing. I mean, I remember 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we were just launching sort of pricing products that people could download a spreadsheet to be able to identify what competitors were doing in the marketplace. And suddenly we're here with systems like your own that are actually looking at how rates are behaving in the future and how you can optimize those rates for the best of the customer. Obviously, some of those algorithms are a bit out of joint at the moment because there is no present bookings. We don't know what the market is going to look like, but nonetheless, this technology is here to stay. And people need to be upskilling. And it's great to see that people were using this time profitably in order to add additional skills to them. But you mentioned obviously this fact of what you're able to give back and what we've seen other companies give back. And I guess there's, in some ways there's the angels and demons within all of this. And what's been quite interesting is the fact that Booking.com, one of the biggest, most powerful online travel agents, and even companies potentially in the world, got a $4 billion loan in order to see them through. I mean, do we have to be conscious? Is this sort of like a warning signal to us in the industry that perhaps Booking is not necessarily on as stronger foundations as we are made to believe?
I mean, I think yes, I think that's true. I mean, we have to bear in mind that what's happening right now, nobody would ever have predicted this, or certainly not within the travel business. So what's happening is a once in a lifetime kind of thing, and I think it is shaking the foundations of what we thought we knew. And Booking.com obviously asked for this loan. I've read also they're furloughing people, and this is for hoteliers. This is quite surprising. I mean, we have clients who get more than half their bookings from Booking.com. And they have a dominant position, certainly in Europe, not so much in North and South America. And to think that this dominant position might not be so secure as we thought. What I think is the distribution landscape could change as a result of this. It's not clear to me who could come into this landscape, but there's plenty of players who could. Google, everyone's been talking about Google for a long time, Amazon, maybe even people like Apple could come into this landscape. So I think that all the certainties that we had about our business are no longer certain.
I mean, it's a matter that we have to be more agile. I mean, what we're expecting at the moment, and this is going to be the case, is that market by market, the lockdown restrictions are going to be reduced, and then they're going to start to allow European travel and then international travel, and it's all going to be staged. So surely your distribution will have to change from day one. You can't be looking, if you are used to getting international travelers into your hotel, you can't expect to be able to do that from the start of the lockdown being lifted. You have to be looking more at regional or local markets, surely.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's clear that in most countries, when demand comes back, and in most countries there is no demand right now. In some countries, because hotels are closed by government mandate, and in some countries just because they're empty. It's highly likely that the demand which comes back first will be local. And local could be very local, because in Spain, for example, where I live, the country is divided into autonomous communities, and probably the restrictions will be lifted community by community, not in the whole country at the same time. And then if you think about the Canary Islands or the Balearics, where Mallorca and Ibiza, if you have to get on public transport to get to these places, you might think twice about it. Whereas if you can go in your car, you're more likely to travel. So, I mean, you have to look for, first you have to understand which demand is available to you, and then how to reach it. And how to reach it might not be the same way as you did before.
And so, this is where, though, perhaps hotels have traditionally only really worked with a handful of channels, and tends to be those channels that are most renowned rather than necessarily channels that target specific markets or specific niche groups. So I guess hoteliers need to be much more aware of the wider distribution opportunities available to them, rather than just rely on the good old channels that have given them bookings before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Carry on.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing was a matter is this threat of Airbnb as well. Has that been diminished as they start to move into longer term rentals? I mean, what's been the talk in the conversations that you've been having as they start to diversify now from just short term rentals?
I mean, it's an interesting scenario now, because what had been happening up to now is that people weren't willing to offer long-term rentals because it was more profitable to sell their apartments on Airbnb for a week or a month or a day even. So there was some competition in terms of lodging between hotels and apartments. If Airbnb are moving into long-term rental, it's because they don't have enough demand for their short-stay products. Whether this is good for hoteliers, I mean, I think hoteliers have the same problem. There's no demand. So I'm not sure if this is really going to change once the market gets back to normal, whatever normal is. It's not clear to me yet if the threat of Airbnb has been nullified to some extent or not. I don't think so, because actually, if you think about, there's two schools of thought here, and I've heard both of them, and I'm still quite undecided. One school of thought is that when travelers are willing to travel, they will need some sort of guarantee about cleanliness and sanitary conditions in where they're staying. And there's one school of thought that says hotels can provide more confidence to the customers in this sense And already there's several movements to create sort of quality seals. Accor has started to do something. There's a few movements in this direction. Marriott has set up some sort of sanitary committee or something. So one school of thought is people will rather stay in hotels because they are more clear about cleanliness. But the other school of thought is if you stay in an apartment, you don't come into contact with as many people. You don't have to check in. You don't see anybody. So as long as you are confident that the apartment's clean, then it's actually a different proposition than staying in a hotel.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, I was thinking about hotel stays, and I was thinking, especially where EasyJet were talking about how they would fill their aircrafts and potentially have a seat in between each passenger free. And then I was thinking, well, hold on a second, that's going to be the same for restaurants and for pubs. Well, that even means the same for hotels, for breakfast in the morning. How are they going to lay out the tables? Are they going to have to do staged breakfast seatings? And it almost seems to hark back to the times when I used to go on holiday when I was a teenager, and we would be prescribed, a time for breakfast between 8 and 9 or 9 and 10. And it's almost like, oh my God, are we actually reversing here somewhere?
I think that's going to happen. And I actually think that the days of the breakfast buffet are limited because, and this is already being talked about in hotels, rather than having a load of people crowding around a table with food on it, you can serve it to them at their table, and you can limit the amount of people coming in and out. There's a hotel in Madrid who've basically launched this idea where they put like glass panels between the tables. So wow. It looks really weird. And a month ago, if you'd showed me it, I would have been like, oh my God, no one's ever going to come here. But maybe this is what we need. And maybe hotels have to think about being less full. I mean, they're going to be less full anyway right now because there's no demand. But maybe you have to think about your physical product and how you can ensure that people aren't too close together. And there's a lot to think about. I guess architects have to be involved in this kind of thing as well. But it's going to change a lot of the ways that we operate, I think.
I think it's a matter of really constantly rethinking, looking at a space, looking at the way you do things, thinking about the many different ways in which you could do that specific job or deliver that specific type of service, and having to test those, iterate those, and be ready to change them at a moment's notice should circumstances change. And I think we're going to have to become much more agile as a society than we've been used to. This idea of I called today Groundhog Day, but then you sort of the last few weeks, you wake up, you do the same thing, and you're not going anywhere different. But it's almost actually, if you review what we've been doing, we've taken all of the stuff that we did offline and we've turned it in online, but in exactly the same format. There's been no change to the way we've delivered these things. And certainly over the last few weeks, we are noticing that some of these approaches don't actually work in the same way. And we do have to adapt. We do have to change the way we do things, especially when you're integrating technology, because technology is meant to give you extra power, is meant to bring those efficiencies. So what sort of advice can you give to hoteliers or even the wider travel market, really, of when they're looking at technology? How can they be looking at their processes and their people to make sure that it's integrated in the way that's going to optimize their operations rather than add an additional task to what they're doing?
I think, the last few years, the buzzword has been digital transformation. And I think now is the time to actually do this. But for me, digital transformation starts before you think about technology. And I think what you need to think about is, what do I need? What do I need for my business? What do my customers need? And then once you have that decided, then you need to look at, how can I do this with technology, and what technology is available, and does it do what I need it to do? And either you you may decide to change the technology that you've got, or you may decide to buy some extra technology to do things that at present you're either doing manually or differently. And I think this is the path. We're going to need a lot of data. We need to understand what's happening in the market, and we need to understand at quite a micro level what's going on. So we need technology which can provide us with that data and that can also sort it, because if not, you're just going to drown in data. But you know, everyone is absolutely waiting to see if they can identify trends of what's happening in the market. Where's business coming from? We need data for that, and technology gives you data, and then good technology helps you to interpret that data. So I think this is the time for digital transformation. You could also think about processes which involve less contact with people in certain ways. So these already exist, but online check-ins, being able to open the room door with your phone. There's lots of stuff that could be useful right now. And now is the time to think about it. The question is whether you have funds right now to invest in this or not. But I think that hotels who do have some money in the kitty, this is actually the time to implement this, and also even think about your spend on digital marketing. I don't think it's a good idea to stop spending on Google Hotel Ads right now, for example. So there's a lot to do, but for me, technology is the enabler of your strategy. You have to decide what your strategy is first.
And as you say, go back to the values. What is it you want to achieve for your guests? What sort of experience do you want to deliver them? And I guess as well, it's about your business. You know, what success do you want to see in your business, and how can that technology help? And obviously right now, there's a lot of products that are available on the market, either with a free trial period or no payment until a certain point, or there are freemium products out there. So it's definitely worth checking to see what's out there and speaking to different people in the community. And you know, everybody's ready, I think, right now to be able to give you some advice and even their own personal experiences on the technology involved. So Neville, when the doors reopen and you're able to go out and about and travel, what's going to be your first destination?
Probably Scotland, which is where I'm from. And I was planning to go last year. I didn't go for various reasons, and now I can't go. So once things get back to normal, I guess I'll be on a plane to Edinburgh to experience a bit of cold and wind, a bit of a change from my sunny Madrid weather. But I'd really like to go home for a visit when I can.
Yeah, it's crazy how much you just, I guess, miss home when you can't do it so easily. Well, Neville, thank you ever so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Ryan. Good.
Okay, guys, so coming up soon, we're going to be talking to people within HR, looking at recruitment processes. We're also going to be speaking to the CEO of AC Group, looking at the wholesale marketplace. And we'll be talking to the owner of Firebomb, who we're going to be about looking at the tours and activities market. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode of Travel Market Life. There's certainly more to come. This has been produced by Haynes Marcoms with music from Dano Songs and streamed on StreamYard. You can check out all the episodes either on the YouTube channel or through the podcast. Thanks, and speak to you soon.